Welcome to Lotus Lane Daily. I'm glad you're here. Today's wisdom is for anyone going through something hard. You know that feeling when you've done the thing you knew you had to do, and somehow it still feels terrible? You made the choice. You had good reasons. You thought about it for months, maybe years. And yet here you are, feeling guilty about being the one who walked away, questioning yourself at 2 a.m., wondering what's wrong with you that you can't just feel relieved. Being the one who left is its own kind of hard, and almost nobody talks about it that way. The cultural script for breakups assigns roles clearly. There's the person who got hurt, and there's the person who did the hurting. The one who left is supposed to be fine, or at least they're supposed to be the one who doesn't get sympathy. They chose this. They have no right to be struggling. So they sit with the guilt quietly, not wanting to seem like they're making the ending about themselves, and that silence makes everything heavier. The guilt that doesn't go away. Guilt after ending a relationship is not by itself a signal that you made the wrong decision. This is important enough to say plainly, because the two things get collapsed constantly. Guilt means wrongdoing, wrongdoing means I shouldn't have done it. But that logic doesn't hold up. Guilt in this context is usually the echo of care. You cared about this person. You knew on some level that leaving would cause them pain. That awareness, the fact that you held it, that you didn't dismiss their feelings easily, is actually evidence that you were a decent person in this relationship, not a cruel one. Cruel people don't tend to lose sleep over the damage they've done. What's harder to sit with is this. You can be the right person who made the right call and still have caused real suffering. Those two things coexist. They don't cancel each other out. Accepting that, not running from it with justifications, not drowning in it with self-punishment, is probably the actual work of this period. There is also, underneath the guilt for some people, a stranger feeling, grief, which doesn't make obvious sense if you were the one who left. But of course, you're grieving. You loved them, or you tried to. You were inside something for a while, and now you're outside it. The fact that you chose the door doesn't mean walking through it wasn't loss. What made you leave in the first place? Here is where honesty matters. Not performed honesty in the narrative you tell friends, but private honesty with yourself. Most people who leave a relationship didn't leave it lightly. They left because something was wrong, sometimes dramatically wrong, sometimes quietly, persistently, corrosively wrong. Wrong enough that staying felt like a slow erosion. They left because they had tried, or because they had stopped believing trying would change anything. They left because they were lonely inside it, or because something in them knew that what they were doing to themselves wasn't sustainable. A modern writer on wisdom and mistakes once put it like this: a wise person is not one who never makes mistakes, but one who learns from every mistake and keeps growing. The reason that's useful here is the implied permission in it, not to have known everything in advance, but to understand it now. Looking back, most people who left a relationship can identify what they were trying to say, even when they couldn't say it at the time. The leaving was the sentence they couldn't yet put into words. What were you trying to say? That's a question worth sitting with, not to justify yourself to anyone else, but because the answer tells you something true about what you need and what you're going to need to give in any future relationship worth having. The part nobody helps you process. When you're the one who left, there's a specific loneliness that comes from being locked out of the grief community. You can't go to your friends and say you're heartbroken without getting some version of, "But you left, didn't you?" You can't be the protagonist of your own loss story because the story already has a protagonist and they're not you. So the feelings go sideways. They show up as irritability, or as a sudden hypercritical relationship with your own decisions, or as an overcorrection where you're so focused on making sure you're the bad guy that you stop being honest about what actually happened. Some people spend months essentially prosecuting themselves in their own head, which is exhausting and changes nothing. The more useful thing, though not the easier thing, is to find one person you can be unguarded with. Not someone who will simply agree that you were right. Not someone who will simply reassure you. Someone who can hold the complexity of it with you. That You made a real choice, that there were real reasons, that there is real loss, and that you are still a person who deserves to work through it. If that person doesn't exist in your immediate circle, a therapist is not a sign of crisis. It's a sign of taking the situation seriously. This kind of internal process does better with a witness. What you owe and what you don't. There are people who will tell you that you owe the person you left a certain amount of time, of explanation, of contact while they heal. This is genuinely complicated, and only you know what's right in your specific situation. But here's something worth knowing. Closure is largely a myth, particularly the version where someone else provides it. The person you left is going to have to build their own meaning out of what happened, and you cannot do that for them, no matter how many conversations you have. There is a kindness in being honest, in saying what you actually mean rather than softening it until it becomes noise. There is also a kindness in stepping back enough that they can begin to move without you still being in their field of vision. What you don't owe is returning to a situation that was wrong for you, because watching them suffer makes you feel guilty. That's not love. That's guilt management, and it doesn't help either of you. There's a thought I keep returning to on this. True victory is not about defeating others. It is about overcoming your own weakness, your own negativity, your own despair. The weakness being named here in the context of leaving might be the tendency to go back not out of love, but out of discomfort with your own guilt. That pattern is worth recognizing. It tends to restart cycles rather than end them. Who you are on the other side. Here's what I think is actually true about the person who chose to leave a relationship that wasn't working. They were doing something harder than staying. Staying is in a strange way easier. It's inertia. It's the known quantity. It avoids the acute pain of a decision. Leaving requires you to be honest about what isn't working when honesty is the uncomfortable option. It requires you to act on that honesty when action has real costs. That doesn't mean the decision was cost-free for the other person. It wasn't. But the willingness to say this isn't right when you could have kept going, that's not the behavior of someone with no conscience. It's the behavior of someone who took their own life seriously enough to stop managing a situation that had run out of road. That kind of honesty is worth understanding in yourself, not as self-congratulation, but as information. You are capable of hard calls. You are capable of choosing your life deliberately. That's actually something to build on. Be patient with the guilt. Let it say what it came to say. Then let it recede, because it will. You made a decision that was yours to make for reasons that were real. You're going to be all right. That's the wisdom for today. If something here landed for you, share it with one person who might need to hear it too. Take it slow. I'll see you tomorrow on Lotus Lane Daily.